Hi everyone, I'm Claire Liu and I'm the CEO of Know Your Company, and today I've got a really special guest. We have here Ben Congleton, who is the CEO of Olark, a chat messaging service for businesses, which if you don't use, you might want to look into it. We're actually happy customers at Know Your Company. I don't know if you knew that, Ben, but
I
yeah,
did, but that is fantastic.
we love it. But Ben and I met maybe a year and a half ago. We spoke on the same panel at a conference. I've always just really admired the way you thought about growing Olark. It's now 40 people, and most recently, what's been really interesting is Ben had a email that went viral. And so we may end up talking about this, may not, but for those of you watching, one of his employees had sent him an email asking for a mental health day off to maybe cope with some anxiety, and Ben's response to the email essentially went viral. So I'm not going to give any more away. You can look it up. It was one of the links I posted in our newsletter, I think in issue 1 or 2, so you can check that out. And you guys at Olark, you're doing a lot of fun stuff. I know you rolled out a new Slack integration, so been busy. So thanks so much for your time. Excited for you to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get the chance to chat, Claire. So
awesome. So Ben, I've got this one question for you, all right, that I've been asking a lot of leaders lately, which is, what's one thing you wish you would have learned earlier as a leader?
yeah. So I had the fortune of you giving me the prompt early, like a second ago. I've done too much to think about it, but I think to me it really sort of comes down to self-awareness. I think that a lot of leaders think there's a lot they want to motivate people, or they want to build really strong teams, or they want to have some trick for BD or something like that. But for me, I think the number one important lesson to learn is just the importance of self-awareness.
Yes.
And when I say that, I mean like understanding your mental state, like where you're at when you enter the conversation. One thing that a friend of mine once told me is in like college, what's really important is you get the assignment done and you turn it in on time. And I think that in leadership and in business, what's more important is that you're able to bring your full self to the task at hand. And so that means taking the time to prepare before going into something, whether that be to take a deep breath and just sort of step back from, some baggage or that previous conversation you just had, and walk into that new situation with a clear head. Or knowing that you can't do that, and taking and putting it on yourself to tell the other people in that situation, hey, my kid is sick. I spent all day rushing around this morning, and really I'm not in a good position to have this conversation right now. And I think that to me, sort of getting to the point where you could know yourself well enough to know when you're energized, when you're de-energized, to know where you're weak, to know where you're strong, to know where you need help. And then that gives you a position where you can start growing yourself, right? So there's this lady named Carol Dweck who has this great idea of a growth versus the fixed mindset. Yes. And I think for the longest time, at least when I was first getting off, I was starting Olark, a lot of times I would react to feedback in a very fixed mindset way. And that means basically when people would give me criticism, I would look at it as an opportunity to defend my point of view, defend my, defend where I was coming from, to try to convince them that of my approach.
Yep.
And not really looking at it as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity that they are giving me a gift of this feedback. They don't have to say anything. They're giving me this gift, and I want to understand where it's coming from, and I want to understand how I can take some of this information and use it to sort of improve myself, to improve my approaches to situations, and to grow. And I think that I don't know. I feel like it's if I wish I could go back to the beginning, tell early Ben, the 3 people in the house, we're just starting this company, hey, growth versus fixed mindset.
Yeah.
Understand when you're in it And if you find yourself getting defensive, it probably means that, there could be something like you probably are not in the right mental state to receive that feedback right now. And so you can tell someone that. And, or, if you find yourself getting defensive, take the time to write it down, try to understand what's going on in your head, try to understand why you feel this way, and really try to grow from it. So that's my one lesson for you. It's just, understand yourself and understand what energizes you and understand what causes you to have lower energy, and just continuously try to improve.
Yes. I was just nodding my head throughout the entire thing you were saying, Ben, because, I think it strikes probably a chord with so many of the folks who are watching this, of that lack of self-awareness contributes to so many sort of miscommunication, angry blow-ups, conflict and tension, and sometimes just bad decisions because you're reacting to the mental state that you're in versus maybe seeing something for what it actually is and being self-aware enough to see that. So I love that you shared that. I'm curious, you alluded to, saying, I wish I could go back to my, the early days, right?
Sure.
And sit young men down and tell them these things. I mean, so talk to me about, like, was there something in particular, like particular moments or, something that happened in those early days where you went, oh yeah, that was something that happened because, the self-awareness just wasn't there like it should have been.
I think that, in the early days of Olark, I did a really good job growing in so many ways, but I don't think that I grew as much on sort of the interpersonal level as I probably could have had I been better at receiving feedback and had I been better at sort of understanding the mental state I was in. So I think, like, when you're like four guys working out of like living and working together in a small house, like we had 2 cats, my girlfriend moved in, like it was there's a lot going on.
Yes.
And it was pretty intense. And I think that it helped me build strong bonds with my co-founders, but I think at the same time there were situations that that I think if I had been a little bit more mature as a leader, or if I understood my limitations more, where they could have been handled, or situations could have been handled better. So things like without going into really any examples at all, sorry, but like HR level issues, hiring decisions. I remember there was at one point where I was trying to resolve a conflict between 2 employees, and I just was really just like, my head was somewhere else. My head was like, I just need to get this. This is the last thing on my to-do list. I just need to get this done, and then I can like hop on a plane and go like see my family or something like that. And just situations like that, where if you really are more self-aware and are able to understand yourself, understand what you're going through, you can sort of head off some of those situations before they happen. Even if something as simple as like, oh, like, man, I like hate when that person does this. and like being aware that your emotions are real, right? That feeling of like, oh, why does this happen? Just in any situation, right? Like that is a real emotion that you are feeling. You feel this way. Now, does the other person on the other end, feel the same way as you? Like, are their life experiences the same as yours? Well, odds are no, right? Like every person is different. Every person is motivated by different things. I think if you start off with, situations like our core values that we put in place many, many years ago, one of our first core values was assume good faith. And so you can assume good faith. And I think that is a really, really great place to start. But if you understand what's going on inside of yourself, it makes it a lot easier to move past just assuming good faith and kind of take it to the next step of really practicing empathy and understanding what's going on with that person, understanding what's going on with you, and being able to resolve issues. And I would say that, on many levels, like kind of like when you're 3 people, you're really just like building a product, right? You're trying to get something out there, trying to build a company that just exists. And when you're 40 people, you're really trying to take what you've built and scale it. And so, really what you're doing is you're trying to like empower this team of really, amazing people you've brought together to do something that none of them could do on their own, and none of them could do inside other organizations. So, to me, that's a change in what your role is as a leader. And, and it's really about, motivating and inspiring and helping people bring their whole selves to work. And I like this, story that you alluded to before, is, part of what my role has become. In the early days, it's like problem solver of every problem that you could possibly have. And now it's more like helping point us in the right direction and make sure that everyone is really inspired and excited to go where we're trying to go, and that they have the support from the organization to move as much of the like kind of annoying stuff out of the way so they can just focus on doing what they're really good at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many founders and CEOs and such can relate to feeling that role change and feeling like, okay, I used to do everything, feeling, I'm the doer, and now, I don't really talk to customers. I don't really, build the product, touch the product, and it changes. And so I think that self-awareness becomes even more important as you manage those relationships, and your role becomes more about communication and direction and vision. So,
and I think actually, the other thing that feeds in there very strongly is just that you as a founder, as a CEO or whatever, like you have a lot of power in defining what your role is. Yes. So just because you read in a book that a CEO should have to do these like 5 things or something like that, you don't necessarily have to do those 5 things yourself, right? You can have other people in your team that bring strengths to the table that are better than you at things. And I think that that's something that I've realized like through my own growth of just that, my co-founder, Matt, he's really, really good at organizing our executive team. He's far better than I am.
Yep.
And, his role as COO, and, I think that feeds in nicely there. But I think like as you build that company out, like understanding where you're strong and understanding where you're weak, and really trying to surround yourself with people that are better than you at the things that you're weak at is, first of all, it removes a ton of stress of just being a leader, and it also just increases the performance of your team. So that's been a transition that's happened at Olark over the last like couple of years, and it's just been incredibly, incredibly powerful and
absolutely
a ton of fun for me.
Absolutely. So with this self-awareness, Ben, what do you do then, sort of week by week, or day by day, these days to center, ground yourself? I'm taking notes here, what can you share with us to
what
to
kind of got me over the edge? I mean, like, honestly, I think, I've had these like little, like, people are like, oh, Ben, you should read this book. And there's a book called like Leadership and Self-Deception. There's another called like The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And, I read these books and I was like, oh, these books are great. They talk about self-awareness. They're so meaningful.
Right.
And then move on day to day, back to work. And, I have a whole management team read these books. So, but like, still, like, I think what really pushed me over the edge, and I mean, this is just probably more telling about me than it is anything else, but I like got an exec coach. Like, I decided, like, I had gotten feedback from, one of our managers said like, hey, Ben, I think you'd really benefit from having an executive coach. I had a really good friend of mine who had been going to executive coaching and had just taught me about how meaningful it was.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, fine, I'll give this a shot.
Absolutely.
And went out and interviewed a bunch of potential exec coaches. And I talked to one exec coach who was like Lyft's executive team's exec coach, and he was so good but so expensive. Like, I guess I understand why it costs so much to have a coach who's good, but let me see if I can find someone I can afford. So I went, I talked to more people, and that helped me have like a good upper bound for how good it was. And the way I actually got that guy's name is I reached out to some friends and I said, who's the best exec coach you know? Right. And so I think like Andrew Warner pointed me in the direction of this guy, and there's an organization in San Francisco called Inner Space where they have this guy named Joe, who's a founder of Flickster, now runs this nonprofit trying to educate founders. And a lot of his topics are around self-awareness, good management training. And he had recommended that I talk to this guy too. And so that guy was fantastic, but out of my price range. And I talked to a bunch of different coaches and eventually found that guy I really liked that I've been working with for about a little over probably like a year and a half now.
Wow.
And I think there's a few benefits of exec coaches.
Mm-hmm.
One is they're kind of like an accountability partner
Yes.
who has no stake in the game other than you, right? So like, your co-founder could help solve part of this problem, but I think it's nice to have someone whose only job is to like force you to reflect.
Yes.
And that was really what I think helped me a lot, was just to have this time set aside to force myself to reflect on a weekly basis, because things are so buszy.
Oh,
It was really, really easy for me to like push it off, or like slide into a weekend,
absolutely.
or like, want to get some other more urgent thing done. And I think it really took me having this responsibility to this other person that pushed me over the edge. And so that was that helped me a lot. I've also found like particular workshops that I've gone to have been really helpful, but I think a lot of it is just having that regular practice of action that has helped me a lot. And so, I mean, if you can figure out a way to get that without paying someone else to do it, I think that's a really great way of doing it. But pretty well.
Absolutely. I have a few close friends who are incredible executive coaches, right? And I mean, you sit down with them for 30 minutes and you totally understand the value. So I'm absolutely with you there. And I think you also make such a good point, Ben, that it's the repetition, it's the practice, it's stretching the muscle, like with anything, right? That if you don't do it, if you don't try it, if you don't have a way to keep yourself accountable, it's very easy to read the stuff in the books, maybe even watch stuff like this on YouTube, etc., and feel like, oh, okay, I got it. When in practice, it's always the hardest part. So thank you for sharing that. I'm always, wondering sort of what is the thing that pushes, different leaders over the edge into putting stuff into practice. So appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for making the time to do this. So fun to chat with you, and appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Claire. This has been really fun. I'm really excited to, keep watching the episodes and see where things go from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. See ya.